about what must be done, and we intend to do it, I want to talk frankly with you tonight about the first steps that we shall take. These actions will require sacrifice on the part of many of our citizens. More will be required in the future.
For decades, the world has watched the USA and Russia engage in a high-stakes geopolitical chess game. Despite numerous conflicts and confrontations, these two superpowers have never directly gone to war. Why is that? In today's video, we explore the reasons behind this delicate balance of power, delving into historical context, nuclear deterrence, economic interdependence, proxy wars, and the modern geopolitical landscape. The roots of US-Russia tensions trace back to the aftermath of World War II, leading to a period known as the Cold War. This era was marked by intense rivalry and a constant threat of nuclear conflict, but a direct war was avoided. Let's delve deeper into how this rivalry started. The Yalta Conference, held in February 1945, saw Allied leaders Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin dividing Europe into spheres of influence. This division laid the groundwork for the Cold War, with the Soviet Union controlling Eastern Europe and the Western Allies promoting democracy and free markets in the West. The differing visions for post-war Europe set the stage for decades of tension. In March 1946, Churchill's Iron Curtain speech highlighted the growing divide between East and West. He described an Iron Curtain descending across Europe, symbolizing the ideological and political separation. This speech intensified Western resolve to counter Soviet expansion and publicized the emerging Cold War. The Truman Doctrine marked a significant shift in US policy, pledging support to nations resisting communism. This policy of containment justified US involvement in global conflicts. The Marshall Plan provided over $12 billion to rebuild Western European economies, creating a barrier against communism and fostering strong US-Europe ties. These initiatives underscored the ideological battle and economic strategies that defined the early Cold War. The dawn of the nuclear age began with the Manhattan Project, a secret US program during World War II that led to the development and deployment of the first atomic bombs in 1945. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki demonstrated the unprecedented destructive power of nuclear weapons, fundamentally altering global military strategy. By 1949, the Soviet Union successfully tested its first atomic bomb, codenamed RDS-1, or First Lightning, marking the start of the nuclear arms race. The rapid development and deployment of nuclear arsenals by both the United States and the Soviet Union created a new kind of warfare where the potential for mutually assured destruction, MAD, became a central deterrent against direct conflict. The Cuban Missile Crisis was a pivotal moment in the Cold War, bringing the world to the brink of nuclear war. In October 1962, American reconnaissance discovered Soviet ballistic missiles being installed in Cuba, just 90 miles from the US mainland. President John F. Kennedy responded with a naval blockade and demanded the removal of the missiles. For 13 tense days, the world watched as the two superpowers engaged in a high-stakes standoff. The crisis was eventually diffused when Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev agreed to remove the missiles in exchange for a US pledge not to invade Cuba and the secret removal of US missiles from Turkey. The Cuban Missile Crisis underscored the catastrophic potential of nuclear war and led to significant measures to prevent future escalations. It resulted in the establishment of a direct communication link between Washington and Moscow, known as the Hotline, and paved the way for the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty of 1963, which prohibited atmospheric nuclear tests and aimed to reduce the risk of nuclear fallout. The global economy is highly interconnected, with supply chains spanning multiple countries. For instance, the international oil market sees oil produced in the Middle East refined in Europe and consumed in the United States. Technology sectors depend on components sourced from various regions, such as semiconductors from East Asia and software from the US. Financial systems are equally intertwined, with capital flows and investments crossing borders seamlessly. This interdependence means that any major conflict involving the US and Russia would disrupt global trade and economies, causing widespread economic instability. Instead of direct military confrontation, the US and Russia often resort to economic sanctions to exert pressure. Economic sanctions target key sectors of an adversary's economy, such as finance, energy, and defense. For example, following Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014, the US and EU imposed sanctions that restricted Russian access to Western financial markets, technology, and energy development capabilities. These sanctions have significantly impacted the Russian economy, leading to currency devaluation, reduced foreign investment, and economic contraction. Conversely, Russia has used counter-sanctions and cyber attacks to disrupt Western economies and political processes. During the Cold War, the USA and the USSR frequently engaged in proxy wars, where they supported opposing sides in regional conflicts rather than fighting directly. This approach allowed both superpowers to exert influence and promote their ideologies without risking a direct military confrontation that could escalate to nuclear war. The US supported South Vietnam against the communist North Vietnam, which was backed by the Soviet Union and China. This war saw extensive American military involvement, massive casualties, and significant political consequences without a direct US-Soviet clash. The Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan to support the communist government against the Mujahideen rebels, who were backed by the United States, Pakistan, and other allies. The US provided financial aid, weapons, and training to the Mujahideen, contributing to a costly and prolonged conflict for the Soviets. Diplomatic efforts have been essential in managing and de-escalating tensions between the USA and Russia. Diplomatic channels and international institutions provide platforms for dialogue, negotiation, and conflict resolution. The UN has been a crucial forum for addressing global conflicts and crises, facilitating peacekeeping missions and mediating negotiations to prevent escalation. Treaties such as the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, START, and the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, INF, have been instrumental in reducing the number of nuclear weapons and lowering the risk of direct conflict. The emergence of China as a global superpower has significantly altered the geopolitical dynamics between the USA and Russia. China's rapid economic growth, expanding military capabilities, and strategic initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, have shifted global power structures. Both the USA and Russia have had to adapt their strategies in response. The US views China as a primary strategic competitor, leading to a realignment of its foreign policy and defense priorities. Similarly, Russia has sought to strengthen its ties with China, forming a pragmatic partnership to counterbalance Western influence and enhance its global standing. Modern conflicts increasingly involve cyber warfare and hybrid threats rather than traditional military engagements. Both the USA and Russia have developed sophisticated cyber capabilities, which they use for espionage, disinformation campaigns, and disrupting critical infrastructure. Cyber attacks offer a way to exert influence and achieve strategic objectives without direct military confrontation. For instance, the 2016 US election interference highlighted the impact of cyber operations on democratic processes. Similarly, the USA has launched cyber operations against Russian infrastructure, demonstrating the ongoing cyber struggle between the two powers. The USA and Russia continue to exert influence through regional conflicts, focusing on areas like Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and Central Asia. In Eastern Europe, NATO's expansion and Russia's actions in Ukraine have heightened tensions. In the Middle East, both powers are involved in Syria, supporting opposing sides. Russia backs the Assad regime, while the USA has supported various opposition groups. In Central Asia, the competition for influence is evident in energy politics and military presence. These regional engagements allow the USA and Russia to assert their power and protect their interests without direct confrontation, maintaining global stability amid shifting alliances. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the intricate relationship between the USA and Russia. We look forward to continuing this exploration together in future discussions.